Welcome to Team Peachtree, and I don't know if there's a more appropriate subject to be talking about on this channel than trees, and specifically the world's tallest trees, which is the sequoia. The world's widest tree in terms of girth is a kind of sequoia as well. That's not the kind of tree we're going to be talking about here. But I must say, when I was traveling down from Oregon into California with Terry Dean, the thing that was for me a little bit strange was I couldn't it wasn't immediately clear whether these forests were extensive or little dollops here, little dribs and drabs. In other words, if you had to ask someone, are there redwood forests that sort of go on for miles and miles? And the answer is no. There are little sections of redwood forest here and there. And if you go into Wikipedia, you'll see that in terms of their conservation status, they are regarded as threatened or endangered. One of the things that is in the favor of this particular tree is the fact that it is fire resistant. So, because of climate change, they have seemed to have done quite well, in terms of fires. You don't really hear too much about sequoia forests burning down so far. The other thing that I found really magical and quite incredible walking through these forests was the absolute silence. It was really remarkable. You're in this incredible amphitheater of trees, the biggest trees in the world, and you'd almost expected there to be a cacophony of insects and birds and critters, and there are large sections where there's absolute silence. almost as though the trees 100 years ago said to one another, 500 years ago said to one another, or you had some sort of, big tree that sort of spoke to its little saplings and said, guys, concentrate, let's focus on growing. Let's close our eyes and just concentrate on growing. And you kind of get that sense that this isn't an area, terrain, where growing is taking place, and so it's not by mistake. These are the tallest trees in the world, and what are they trying to do? They're trying to grow. They're trying to outgrow one another. And as a result, they've got very tall trunks, wide, but also extremely tall, and not very big branches on them. So you kind of have these trunks that are soaring out of the ground like rockets. And what is incredible about the wood of redwoods is that they are pest resistant, fire resistant. And another thing that you notice walking, I was actually on my own walking through these forests. One of the things you really perceive is the combination of cool air, and also the air is moist. It's cool and moist at the same time. And I think it's an unusual combination of the California coast, which is somewhat warm. The actual landmass is warm, but the ocean that is sort of breaking against it is cool, even cold. And so that cold ocean air meeting the warm coast, but of course it's the other thing that I must also mention is the trees invariably grow on slopes. It doesn't really grow in flat terrain. It tends to be on a rising slope. And so the air going up on this rising slope tends to condensate. And so it just is interesting that if you think about it, what is the ideal environment for a tree that wants to be the biggest tree in the world? And the answer is cool and moist and also sloping. The other thing which I think is tempting to imagine is in this sort of environment you might think that, so this is what all trees aspire to be. Like if you leave the redwoods and you go to your own garden, or you go to other forests around the world, you might say, is this what trees are trying to become? And I think the answer is no. I think the redwood is a surviving, successful tree, but it's not. It's threatened. It's not doing terribly well. It's also something that is extremely. I don't know if it's very efficient at converting soil, water, sunlight into whatever, into a life, into the tissues and structures of life. I don't think it's very efficient at that, because a tree doesn't need to be so big. And there are other examples of trees that I think are potentially more successful. And while I was walking through this forest, I was wondering, what is the largest organism on this planet? And it sort of awakened this really interesting kind of quest, because although the redwood is a very big organism, it's an individual. And redwoods in a forest, you might say, are a forest of redwoods, but it's nevertheless a number of individuals competing against one another. Whereas you get other organisms that are colonies. It's one individual that nevertheless spreads itself out and becomes a colony. And that is arguably a more successful organism. In terms of pure volume, it is a larger organism than the redwoods. And so another tree, another system of trees, Pando, is a clonal colony of individual quaking aspen. And interestingly, that is almost on the same latitude, also in the same area of the earth It's in the northwestern United States. It's a little bit east of where these redwoods are. It's east of California in Utah. And so I actually went in search of that forest after I was in this sort of area. But also interestingly, and it depends on your definition of largest organism, a contender for that is a fungi, which actually is very close, very adjacent to the redwood forest. It's a fungi known as honey fungus, and it is located in the Blue Mountains of eastern Oregon. It's the largest fungal colony in the world, spanning about 9 square kilometers. And this organism is estimated to be 2,400 years old. And so what is interesting both with the fungi and with the trees is this idea of transcendence, this idea of an organism that has learned to defeat illness to some extent, to deal with fire, which is one of the most destructive things that are out there, and then also deal with one of the most obvious killers of any life form, which is death. And so you've got these organisms that find ways of transcending that, and it really is quite extraordinary. If you think about an organism that is 2,400 years old, trees that are 500 years old, 1,000 years old, 2,000 years old, people live kind of a fraction of that, 1/24 of that length of time. It feels like we have a lot to learn, doesn't it? Keep weaving, and I'll see you guys next time.